To me, it's worth it because I count on it. Every Easter, starting Easter, I juice my own Valencia oranges all the way through August. And so far, my citrus is able to supply me year-round of fruit, year-round citrus. I don't have to buy. I hate buying stuff on the market because it never compares.
But my neem oil always kill all the leaves.
Really? Then your concentration must be too high.
Okay.
How?
I just spray it. It came with a spray bottle.
Oh, I see. Amazon has these sprayers, and it's about $10 for the 1 gallon thing. I don't know how they make it so cheap, but it's fairly well constructed, except the stem is plastic, so when you are pressurizing the canister, make sure it's straight down, not at an angle, because it could break. It's plastic. So it's $10 for the 1 gallon pack, and then I go to Armstrong and get, I measure a teaspoon. I think it calls for 2 tablespoons per gallon. But I thought, wait a minute, they are selling this product. I'm going to try 1 tablespoon to start off to see what happens. And I got really good results. So I stick with 1 tablespoon. Unless you're unusually aggressive, then I would step up to 1.5 or 2. So before I do that, for best results, you would brush off any high concentration of aphids or scale bugs. Brush them off first. And then if you have 1 or 2 left, it's okay, just go ahead and spray afterwards.
Are you plagued, is the citrus plagued by leaf miner?
Not yet. Not yet. But I've had that in the past. So it's good timing that I'm taking care of it now. And I'm hoping for cooler days because then from this point forward, I've been here for about 38 years. And I've noticed summer really comes after Memorial Day. Sometimes you have no June gloom. I'm counting up for a few days of June gloom. So the weather's mild until 1 o'clock and can spray. I can take some time off away from work. Because to me, I work in education and I have more flexibility. Sometimes I say, I'm having my Cesar Chavez hours. They know that I'm taking some farm-related stuff. So I would go to work late. And sometimes I bring my garden bounty to the office to share, so they don't mind that. So you spray and hope aphids would die. And ants would haplessly be running around pushing these. I think it's really sad. These ants are pushing the aphids and nothing's happening and just frantically running around. So, to seed or not to seed? I'm talking about harvesting seeds, not spreading seeds to germination, for germination. When it comes to harvesting seeds, I highly recommend that you only let to seed the vegetables or fruits that are rare. Because every time you are doing that, cucumber for example, you want to harvest the cucumber, make sure it's not a hybrid, because hybrid cucumber is nice, but the seed for the next generation is not F1 seeds, and they would produce something different, you never know. So if you want to harvest seeds, you let the one at the end start to grow plump like a light bulb. When that happens, all the nutrients are going to that one, and you cannot harvest anymore. It's just that 1 or 2. The rest of them you need to give up. And you would leave it on the line until the vine turns yellow and brown and let it kind of shrivel up. Then you can cut it open and get the seeds out. And you get the seeds out and put it into the bucket. And the ones that float to the top are not the ones that have fully developed. You would throw those away. The ones that are down the bottom are the ones to be kept. You get them out, put on a piece of cardboard or paper towel, dry it under the sun, 2 or 3 days, and you can put it away in the dry place. So that process takes about a month, an additional month. So if you want to plant something, afterwards it's a waste of time, waste of resource. You lose 2 months on the next season. So I don't recommend that as a practice because you can buy seeds fairly cheaply, $2 a pack. But then if that seed's unavailable anywhere, then you want to do that, and you have to sacrifice a little bit. So if I don't want to harvest the seeds, I would pick the last fruit, and then I run my lawnmower over it. That's the best way to chop things into pieces. You don't need to have expensive contraptions. All you need to have is a lawnmower. Just run it over a couple times. It's mulched. It's in pieces, and then you can fold it into the soil. So to pinch or not to pinch? I believe many of you in the audience have guava trees or other trees. I'm using guava as an example because it's a little different. All of us know that apple, peach, persimmon, citrus, grapefruit, lemon, whatever, are not to be thinned out at the blossom stage. You cannot do that because they have their way to decide what to let go. So if you second guess your trees and you think, oh, I think this is not doing well, I'm going to chop it off. Guess what? The ones you take off, you don't think it's going to do any good, might be the one that's going to do well, and you may end up with nothing left. Now with guava, it's a little different because guava, it's a given. Go try yourself. Again, the A/B test. If you see in this picture here, the center blossom is always the biggest. Keep that one. If you keep the ones on the outside, I guarantee you it's going to be smaller. So when you have this happening, you want to pick the ones on the outside, pick them off, and keep the center one. And some people want to have large fruit, so they advocate that you leave one fruit per branch. Now, if you leave one fruit per branch, you don't want to pick the ones off near the trunk, and then you keep the ones at the tip of the branch. It gets so big, sometimes bigger than the baseball, and it may just drag the entire branch down or break it. So you want to pick it in the middle or closer to the trunk and pick off the ones at the tip. Because just like traffic, FedEx or UPS delivery, if you live in the boonies and your delivery is not guaranteed to be overnight because it's too far. The same way here with fruits. At the tip of the branch, it takes longer to deliver nutrients. So if you compare the left and right, you'll notice that I take the odd-even approach, left-right approach. I want things to be balanced. Of course, you say, well, why don't I keep both fruit on the left and right on the same node? If I did that, then that would be too many. I'd be keeping quite a few. I'd rather have left and right, so it's kind of balanced at the end. So I have all the secondary blossoms taken out. And on the right side, you'll notice this one here, another, and way out there. So I reduced the number by 70%. Anytime you have more than one flower, you need to get rid of them. So there's only one per stem. I forgot to put a picture to show you. When you let them all develop, the ones on the side will retain the stem, but the center one, the stem will be absorbed into the fruit. So there's going to be no stem, like no neck. So when you try to harvest the center one will always grow the fastest, the biggest. So it will ripen faster, earlier. So if you clip it, you are going to affect the other two remaining. And typically they don't come to full size. It's really below C grade. It's just not worth it to save that, save those blossoms.
Can we go back to the previous picture?
Which one?
The one that Guava one?
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Earlier you explained that you pinch out the one that's outer, but the second one, it seems like you pinch out the one that inner, close to the trunk. Is it right? Can you explain one more time, please?
The branch is still developing,
Right.
and this is early stage. And these are fairly close to the trunk. So I'm talking about the branches this long. You wouldn't want to keep the branch, you wouldn't want to keep the flowers at the tip of the branch, and these are fairly close. So to wash or not to wash, I'm sure everybody has heard of you cannot wash your vegetables until you are ready to serve, or it's going to rot. If you plant your own vegetable, it's not so. All the vegetables that are ready to serve in the bag have been washed, we hope, properly. A few weeks ago, we had some outbreak of E. coli and Salmonella, and that's really bad stuff. Because when you buy these ready packed salad, it's been washed, but sometimes it has not been drained properly. So you would have a salad spinner, wash it thoroughly. I typically wash it outside of the house because soil has organic materials and bacteria, of course. Soil has bacteria. And we are usually okay. We usually have enough resistance to fend off that kind of bacteria. But if you have E. coli in the soil, and you don't want to compromise your kitchen, so I typically wash outside, and the water could be used for irrigation. And then I give it at least 2 washes, get the dirt, everything out, and I bring it in for final wash. I usually pick enough for 3-4 days because it's a time-consuming process. For example, lettuce, I would spend about half hour picking 1 leaf at a time. I use a clipper to keep them all and wash them all, put them in a bowl with a lid on it. When you are spinning, make sure that it's as dry as possible. Of course, there are going to be water droplets in it, and they'll evaporate. It's not a bad thing because once you put it into a bowl and cover it up, the moisture is going to circulate, and moisture is going to rise to the top. If it's too heavy, it's going to drain to the bottom, but eventually it's going to rise to the top, so condensation is going to form. So you put a piece of paper towel on top to absorb moisture when there's excess. But when it's getting too dry, it's going to release moisture. So keep fresh for about at least a week, if not 2 weeks. So I like to use this practice so I have fresh vegetable every day. I do the same thing with my blueberries. I have about 30 blueberry plants. And at the peak, for about 2-3 weeks, I'm able to harvest about 1 pound to 2 pounds per day. And that's enough for the entire family.
Do you get E. coli from the compost or mulch you use?
I beg your pardon?
E. coli. Can you get E. coli from the compost and fertilizer?
Compost, if treated properly, you shouldn't. With the high temperature, you should not. But just to be on the safe side, I always wash. I double wash, triple wash. I got a big bucket, and I use my hose like spin cycle, and I clear off the dust. And 2-3 times, the more I wash, the more water I get to water my trees and vegetables. So when to buy your seeds and fertilizers? Is it like gasoline? You buy it when you need it? No. Well, speaking of gasoline, let me tell you this. Costco in Norwalk started a new gas station. There wasn't one before, but about a year and a half ago, they opened a gas station. There are quite a few truck depots, diesel depots. So that's the only Costco location that has a diesel pump at each, not each island, but each pump has a diesel gun on each one. They do a lot of business. And Costco has done a study. They get 20% to 25% more business when gasoline prices are high. You'll notice the average is about $3.70 right now, right? Costco is holding it down at $3.50, $3.45. Depends on location. And the one in Downey is, I think it's $3.45 right now. They tend to be absorbing some cost, so it's always busy. So I mentioned Costco gas station because I just lost my train of thought.
When do you buy it?
Inventory.
Right. So I tend to engineer. Our headquarters is located in Downey, so I need to go there once every 2 weeks or once a month. So I would arrange my routine in such a way that when I get to Downey for my meeting or to pick up equipment, my gas tank is empty, or I'll drive one of the cars that's empty. So every time I fill up, I'm saving at least $2. So every penny counts. So I would do that. Now, with fertilizer and compost, be patrolling your favorite local hardware store. For me, Home Depot, Osh, all of them are within 120 feet of my beaten path, right off the freeway where I usually go. I pay attention to what's happening. So Walmart's another one, Walmart in Monrovia. It's right off the freeway. I have noticed that they typically clear their inventory by Labor Day, by the end of September. As soon as September is done, Labor Day's over, they start to take away or mark down all of the farm-related items to make way for Christmas. That's their Christmas display area. So quite often you are able to buy fertilizer at as much as 80% off. Last year, I was on a field day. I went to all of Walmarts in the inland area. I visited about 15 of them and got to Redlands, and they had these 27-pound Espoma citrus fertilizer, which I would use a lot of, marked down to $5. So I said, give me all what you got. Hit me. So I grabbed a total of 12 bags. So that's more than 300 pounds. I was able to make use of that.
Can you help her?
No, I have 2 bags left.
I can help next time.
So I would post these good deals because these locations may have different management. They may get messages to clear things up, but it's up to the local manager's discretion to decide how much to mark down. And some locations, like the industry location, they are so stingy. Even the bags are broken. Usually bags are broken, they right away mark it down 50%. But that location got spill all over, wouldn't mark it down a penny. So you need to visit locations to really get the best deal. So you had the question?
No, I was just going to say that some local Home Depot,
Mm-hmm.
they mark down 50% for the broken bags.
Mm-hmm.
Some bags are not even broken.
Right. Home Depot typically would spray a purple dot. When you see the purple dot, they would right away put them on a pallet and then wrap it up. So if you're lucky, you may run into a pallet that has exactly what you need, and it's 50% off. But you need to be careful. Sometimes, for example, last week, they had the mulch going for $2 a bag. And then you suddenly see a pile of the same thing for half off. The half off is taken off of regular price of $3.66. So $3.66 divided by 2 is about $1.80, $1.83. So $1.83 is only a tiny bit lower than the $2, so it may not seem as much of a bargain as you might think. Now seeds, it's another thing. Seeds, my favorite, spring mixed lettuce. When do you plant them? Spring? You plant them in October. Because if you've been to, let's say, France or New York, you'll understand by the time September comes around, it's ready to snow. You get ready for snow, and that's a real winter. And over here, we have spring all around, really. We have spring and summer in comparison to France or Sweden, for example. Their planting season is so short, we need to take advantage of weather. So I typically start in late September, early October. So by that time, they are clearing out all the seeds, you have nothing left. And we live in Southern California, so weather is pretty good. You don't need to really put your seeds in the refrigerator to keep it longer. So you would buy your seeds, even though the price could be a little higher, but you are guaranteed to pick up what you want to plant in October. So now is the time to pick up your favorite seeds and keep it for next season. And I've found that even seeds that are 3 years old, it's perfectly fine. 3 years down the line, I'm still getting 80-90% germination rate. Okay, questions? Go ahead.
I'm talking about gray water.
Yes.
Typically, washing machine,
Mhm.
shower. What can
For people who talk about gray water, who are advocates of gray water, first thing I want to ask them is, let's say you don't have a recirculating system, within 3 seconds the water comes out to the right temperature. Those type of setup are expensive. Most people don't have those things. So when I asked them, what do you do with the cold water that comes out of your valve? If they say, oh, I just let it flow, I don't gather that, well then forget about gray water, because that's the best water you can get. Gray water, I'm sure you have washed your wash basin or your bathtub. You'll notice sometimes there's a waxy substance. Soap, liquid soap is not as much, but if you use regular soap, you'll notice there's a layer of, get a blade. Brush or whatever solution you spray on it, it's not going to work. Guarantee it's not going to work. You get a blade, razor blade, and you start to run across the bottom. You'll notice that there's a layer of wax. That's a result of soap using. So it gets deposited onto the basin. So if you are fine with that kind of deposit getting into the soil, and then earthworm may not like it, they would rather go after vegetation, decaying vegetation rather than wax, then may not be a good idea. So you have wax in it, and you have alkali, and of course there's phosphorus, but it may cause a pH imbalance, alkali, because our soil is typically neutral, unlike eastern seaboard states, where it's more acidic, or the Pacific Northwest, more acidic.